Great. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome, Lulu. Thank you again for agreeing to come on my channel and just chat it up and have a conversation. That's, been my vision for this channel. And I like to share a little bit about my channel real quick. It's just um, the channel premise is transformation, and what that is what it was like, what happened, and what it is like today for kind of like a reflection of my life and my story,
Mhm.
which has been very powerful. And I'm not the only one. So the other thing I do like to say about the transformation process that I've learned with that journey is that I've spent a huge portion of my life resisting and not liking and not enjoying being where I was and where I was going, because I had no idea, first and foremost, where that was. But in hindsight, it's all been part of the bigger picture, which is, fantastic, because today I am such a different person. So anyway, I want to jump right in and really talk to you about, because your life, so I've been amazed because I've sat, so I also like to say that I'm a recovering person, and we've sat in the rooms together,
Mhm.
um, which has been pretty amazing and powerful, but not easy. There's also a lot of pain that comes with transformation and growth and change. And so with you, I have watched you from the time that you came in the rooms to where you are today. And I am just like blown out of the water. I literally am like your life and story is such a reflection of transformation. And we'll get into it more so with, I know you've lost a ton of weight and we'll talk more about that, but I really want to start back a little bit about your story and just have you tell, kind of share how that all started for you and where it's led you to today.
Yeah, for sure. I could probably talk for like 5 hours about it, but I'll do the short and sweet version.
Okay.
But yeah, I grew up in a pretty hectic household. So my life was pretty rocky from the start. And I grew up with parents that were in the rooms, grew up around AA, knew about AA and all that kind of stuff in recovery. But my dad had passed away when I was 8 years old, from lung cancer, which was my like initial kind of shock in my life. And because of having that at such a young age, I never knew how to cope with intense feelings. So from the get go, it was always shove it under, don't feel, forget about it, act okay, all that stuff. I'd never learned coping skills from a young age. And after that, my mom, who had 24 years of sobriety, strong recovery, relapsed, and ultimately never came back from it. Her relapse was her demise ultimately. And she had passed away from suicide when I was 19. And again, that same thing of intense emotion, feeling. I don't want to feel. How do I not feel? And I turned to drugs and alcohol, because that was easier than feeling. Um,
Yeah.
and
Can I just
yeah,
say, not only did your mom have such a long run of quality sobriety and having gone back out, I mean, the way that she actually ended up committing suicide was like so tragic. And
mhm,
so if you're comfortable sharing that, because to me it's such a shock to like, this is a woman that, I mean, back in the day, I was familiar with your mom, actually. I didn't
mhm.
know her, but, had so much sobriety and then she ended up what, in the psych ward and
Yeah, she was at so she ended up getting um committed to the state, which is basically like the state basically makes the decisions for you. You're incapable of making decisions on your life. And she got passed around from treatment center to, Anoka State Hospital to mental health center, you name it, she was there. She probably visited every place in the state. um, and the last place she was at, she had been on suicide watch. She was in a crisis center, was on suicide watch. They let her out on a pass to go for a walk, is what she said, and she never came back. They didn't notify us till probably about 12 hours after the fact that she was missing person. And as a person committed to the state, you're considered a vulnerable adult. So we filed a missing persons report and it was around Loring Park, and we began putting up posters. Have you seen this woman? Like, never in my life would I think that would be what I would be doing at 19 years old, looking for my mom as a missing person. And I was with my grandma and my cousin, who were like my biggest supports at the time. And we had been out in Loring Park. We saw like a medical examiner's van, some sort of county van. And we were like, oh, let's stop them. Let's see if they can, we called hospitals, everything, couldn't get any answers. And maybe they could search in their like computer system or whatever, kind of was our idea. And we stopped them, they pulled over, and we met in a parking lot, and they told them the situation. They looked her up in the system, they came back, and told us what had happened, that she had, actually, they were going to the scene. She had jumped off a building. And I just remember hearing my grandma scream, and everything went black. And we tried to file some sort of complaint against the state and the facility. And ultimately they deemed that it was just a lapse in training, and they would have the employees be retrained, which again was another slap in the face of this woman who had been through hell, and her family who had been through hell was just shoved aside and didn't matter.
And one thing out of curiosity, just because this disease that we suffer from is so significant and so multifaceted, your mom in her recovery, she really actually had a relatively sound mind. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
And then you go back out and you basically, the beast is awoke, and then her mind went to hell in a handbag.
Yeah. And I mean,
she
was
commits
like
suicide and jumps off a building. Like,
and she was Jekyll and Hyde. When she was sober, she was kindest, nicest, most infectious personality, smile for days. And she was a isolated, depressed, angry, bitter drinker. It was Jekyll and Hyde. And that's what this disease will do, is it, like you said, it's a beast. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't, make a difference between Sally Sue and Mike. They're the same.
The dentist, the doctor, or the judge.
Yeah.
So getting back to you,
yes,
I think like this is a big part of your story too, where you ended up very similar, towards the end of the line, which was not a bad end of the line, because it got you into a place which would happen to be Alcoholics Anonymous that saved your life.
Yes.
And then, then your story really began in terms of healing and recovery and journey and what all that looked like. How did you get, just quickly, like, how did you actually end up in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous?
Yeah. So I had struggled with mental health, various diagnoses and tons of medications since I was young. And then quickly turned to alcohol, cocaine, pretty much anything I could get my hands on, that I had access to numb. And, towards the end of my drinking, I always say I drank enough to be like an 80-year-old man, because I was drinking like a 175 a day to myself for about a year, if not more, which is a lot. And I'm lucky to be alive. I'm very lucky to be alive from whether, over drinking one day and my body shutting down, or my detox. I
Mm.
don't really know what happened in that detox. I went into a psychosis for 2 weeks and don't remember any of it except the hallucinations,
Wow.
which are still very vivid. But I could have had heart attacks. I could have had strokes. I could have all these different things that I have no idea what happened.
And let me just say, this is little old alcohol here. It
Yes.
wasn't like you're even doing any kind of concoctions with drugs, you know?
No.
That's the thing about alcohol is it's so just as powerful. And
Yeah.
that's
And
why I love your story. Go
yeah,
ahead.
at the end it was strictly alcohol because I couldn't consume anything else. I couldn't eat anything else. I couldn't smoke cigarettes. I was too drunk to smoke cigarettes. Like,
Yeah.
I was simply drinking to keep my body alive. And oddly enough, when I took the alcohol out to detox, my body shut down. My body and mind completely shut down.
Wow. That's so profound. Your story, I mean, there's so much to your story. And I
Mhm.
absolutely am amazed because when I look at you and I hear and see and have watched you transform, there's no doubt in my mind that there is a power greater than ourselves, behind that and at work. And that, this disease, we're impacted and affected mind, body, and soul, all
Mhm.
areas of life. And so your recovery has been beautiful. I mean, I know that in it, I remember when you first came in, and I know you were dating somebody then and are no longer with that person. And then you went on a venture of, continuing to self work on yourself,
Mhm.
work the steps, help women. Then you met your husband, amazing. Went
Mhm.
on to have a beautiful baby boy, which is so, it just blows my mind, your story.
Yeah.
So, and then, I know now today you have lost, I don't even know how much weight. It's just, I
I
am,
think I'm probably at the lowest weight since I've been in like middle school. But I've lost about 80 to 90 pounds, um, which is like, what?
holy.
Um, yeah.
So I know that you had a lot of really solid tools in your pocket from working this program.
Hmm.
And I know that you have lost all this weight. How did you, okay, so let's focus on that for a few minutes because it's so,
Yeah.
that's like a whole person almost that you
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Like, where did this start? Did this start with like a thought in your mind to say, okay, this is it. I'm going to tackle this. But your mindset, I think it has to be part of your mindset where you
Yep.
really start to address weight loss. So tell me
Yeah.
about it a little bit.
So I started with some health concerns. So I was at my highest weight about a year ago ish. I was at 245 pounds, 245 pounds and 5'7", very bloated, just unhealthy. And I had gone to the doctor um, and was having some health concerns, and they did a scan, like what ultrasound and stuff like that. And I actually got diagnosed with non-alcoholic fatty liver at 6 years sober, because of the way I was eating, the sugar I was consuming, um, and the fat I was consuming, and my weight.
Wow.
So at 6.5 years sober, you usually get a fatty liver from your drinking, and then it turns into cirrhosis, which will eventually kill you from liver failure. And my doctor told me that if I didn't lose weight, and get healthy again, I would probably have cirrhosis of the liver before I'm 40,
Wow.
which
Holy hell.
again, did all this work to get sober, clean my body up, and I'm going to die of basically liver failure, which was my greatest fear while drinking. So that's kind of how that journey started. And I tried smoothie diets, Noom. I tried every diet to fix the problem. Um, and I ended up going to this program called CORE, which is held here in Wayzata at a treatment center. Um, and it's a 5-day retreat
Okay.
that you go and you basically get started on the 12 steps around food.
Wow.
And that on that Saturday night of the event, we had just written like a goodbye letter to food, like you write to alcohol and treatment. Um, and I just remember surrendering and realizing I am powerless over food and my life is unmanageable. I
Mm,
was miserable. I was unhealthy. Physically, mentally, spiritually, I was sick
yeah.
from food.
Wow.
Mm.
And so I think in that 5 days you did, there was no sugar, right?
No sugar, no white flour of any kind, which was pretty much all I ate: sugar, white flour, fat, fried food. No fried food, no dessert after dinner. And we weighed and measured our food. So we had specific measurements. We had a food scale and we had to get it exactly. There was no, 3.1 ounces of protein. It was 3.0 ounces of protein. And if that meant cutting off a little sliver, that meant cutting off a little sliver. And I went into this not thinking I would do that. I was going to learn a few tricks, tools to fix. And my life in the last 9 months, this was 9 months ago, in the last 9 months has transformed physically, mentally, and spiritually.
It, I, that's the thing is that I've watched your weight loss and my jaw has literally dropped to the fact of how quickly
Mhm.
you looked at this, addressed this, applied this to your life, and actually did it. And so coming out of that 5 day program, because I think a lot of people would have some of the same mindsets that you're talking about, as far as like,
Mhm.
oh, maybe I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a few tricks. And, I'm
Mhm.
not sure I'm really going to do this, but okay, I think I'm going to do this. But yeah, I'm going to do this. And then so coming out of that 5 day program, okay, so literally, like, what was it like, going back into your life though? Did you, had you, cause you did have, the 12 steps, which is, I
Mhm.
think are very life changing and anybody can utilize those. But what was it like actually going back into your life? Did you have to make mental changes? I mean, I guess
It was, yeah, it was changing everything. With alcohol, you take it out of sight, out of mind. You're not consuming it. Food you have to consume
gotta
to
eat.
survive. So it was changing my mindset. In the beginning, it was changing my mindset on um, food is fuel. I eat enough to be nutritionally sound. I don't overindulge. I don't snack. Um, and it seems funny because it's like an oxymoron of you mean you're going to control your food to get freedom from food, but it just happens when you surrender to that and you realize that I have no control over food. When I start consuming it, it's the same as alcohol.
Mm,
It's the same as alcohol. One bite, I'm off to the races. So the first part was taking that time away, like you go to treatment to detox my body, which was a whole pain in the butt in and of itself. And then it was, changing my lifestyle. And I work a program through Overeaters Anonymous. So I work 12 steps around food. And I basically do the same things I did in AA. I, sponsor other women. I work the steps. I have a sponsor that I continue to communicate with on a regular basis. Um, and I practice service. I attend meetings. It was a complete lifestyle change. But in that, I got freedom.
wow. Love the word freedom. And you just really laid out so beautifully, like the recipe.
Mhm.
And I loved how you said the mind shift of food being fuel for your body,
Mhm.
and the things that you've actually had to transform around the way you see food, the way your relationship with food.
Yeah.
And so anybody can do this. It's not, where did you tell people where you went again, so that they can, if need be or want to, or even reach out, like how do they?
Yeah. So it's funny if you Google like food recovery program, it'll pop up, but it's called CORE, COR. It doesn't stand for compulsive overeating recovery, which I thought it did. It's
Okay.
some Latin phrasing that's an abbreviation for this Latin phrasing, but it was started by this guy. And just, yeah, it's this CORE program. It's in Wayzata at the retreat,
Okay.
at their like family center, the MacGyver Center. It saved my life. Honestly, I was dying. I literally, physically, I was dying, but also spiritually, I was going to drink. And for me, to drink is to die.
I did not know that about your liver and the impact that weight can have on your body. Well, I do know. I mean, it's obvious
Mhm.
most of us know the impact that
Yeah.
being overweight can have on your body. It doesn't always affect everybody's body the same, but holy macro.
Mhm.
I had no idea about your liver, and you literally have gotten your life back in more ways than one. And I can't say how amazing of a person you are. And I do have to say, sitting in those rooms with you, you share some really profound, deep, moving, life-changing stuff in those rooms, and have helped so many women in that way. And I just want to thank you again for coming on my channel and taking the time to chat it up and have a conversation, because my goal, my hope, my ambition is to just help the world, and one soul at a time, helping people to walk out their lives of freedom,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so priceless, this notion of freedom from whatever it is you need to get free from, whether it's alcohol or obesity or whatever, gambling, whatever it is your story is, and your need for freedom, man, it's just, you can't go buy that somewhere in a store for any kind of money.
Yeah.
And this
And
is
the reason I show up and I be of service every day is because I know that if I show up in this light of like transformed, other people see it and they see it's possible.
yeah,
They see that transformation, they see that change, and they're like, oh, if I show my before and after pictures, if they see my before picture, my after picture, they're like,
90
if you can do
pounds
that, if you can do
90
that, I
pounds
could
that's a
do it.
whole person.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. Just thank you again. And I think we will go ahead and close on that note, but I have enjoyed our conversation. And I want to say, these conversations are just, we're just normal. Well, and I'm pretty sure everyone could tell we're just normal, regular old people over here who have fumbled around in life and found some superpowers
Yeah.
to share with the people in the world, that
Yeah.
hopefully, we can, send that energy out there. So, all
Yeah,
right. Well,
absolutely. Thank you for
thank you,
having me.
hun. And I will talk at you soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Yep.